spent this morning catching up with your comments and the like, and I really appreciate those. Just good comments on there for comments and stuff. So yeah, really appreciate that. It does motivate me a bit. So for the time being, I'm going to be continuing making these videos one a day during lockdown. Keeps me motivated, keeps me with something to do. Gonna have a play around with this unit, get it ready for the van. I've taken that back piece out already, the other one of those. I'm going to take these out. Well, they could be handy, you know what they're like in a van, they just become a pain. Probably leave this piece in and take these out as well. And that back bar might stay in, that'll just protect the batteries a little bit, but also allow ventilation underneath. And then that area, once this thing's on its side, or back the right way up I should say, and not on its side, will allow for the electrics above the batteries, etc. So it needs a bit of a clean up still. Got given it as an old computer desk, no one wants this type of thing. It was going to the skip, so I said I have it, and it's actually been brilliant for as a workbench, workhorse for my building. I have got some of that Zinza bin shellac paint. So once this has had a good clean up, little sand down, perhaps, you know, at some point I will get this primed, ready to paint a decent colour that will go with my greyish, dull greyish scheme. Yeah, so that's worth thinking about. Right, let's get those bits out. The screws that came out of those runners on that unit could be quite useful. I doubt I'll reuse those runners, but the screws themselves will be quite useful, especially if I've got quite a lot of small panel things to do. Without that back slat in across the top, that should protect the batteries nicely, and I can get all the electrics put up onto a panel. By leaving this piece in means I've also left this flooring, and then I'm losing some space. However, that may provide yet more ventilation for the system, because the top will get boxed in with some sort of shelving and storage systems up there running up from the gap at the back. And there's a decent sized gap. It's the width of those batteries, or will be slightly less because of the curvature of the van, but yeah, I will have something going up. Frankly, I look like a Welsh dresser. No, it'll look a modern design, whatever I do. There's my isolator switch that I did yesterday, and this is going to be well clear here for the swivel seat to turn, and this is where my ducting will come out from the diesel heater. Now the other little thing I've got is this for the outside of the van, and yes, it's black and not white like my van, but I don't like them when they start to go yellow and horrible and stuff. And who knows, in a few years this van might not be white, and then a white one would look odd. Black would always go better. However, I'm not really keen on putting a hole in the side of the van for this. It'll look odd, I think. If it was, it would be going behind this battery system low down. Again, I'm going to have to think on that. I don't know what's the general opinion on that. Thinking of putting two of these this side, these battens down to the end there, and across, and one on the other side because there's cabling, so one will fit. And hopefully these will help with the angle of the roof cladding as it comes round. Now, my other thing with roof cladding, and I'm not 100% sure on this, but if you just mount the cladding straight to that metal, even if that's insulated behind or it's got silver foil over it or whatever, then you're still risking condensation on the screw rusting, and the moisture running down the screw to your cladding and looking awful, becoming a mess. So people put wooden battens underneath here, and they say it's worth the sacrifice of 1 or 2 centimeters for the workmanship to be good, for a good job done. However, I'm just thinking, why don't I put them on the side here, and screw them into the side, and then use that to screw my cladding into that piece of wood that will be there. Let me show you what I mean. So if I screw that in from through the side, I can then use that with small screws to attach the cladding. Obviously this will run full length. I've got plenty of pieces of this, enough to do both sides and across the top. I've got wires on this side, and there's a cable there, and the cables down that one will be on the other side. So I can do that on all 4 of these cross beams, and with a couple at the side, that should be okay. And I need to make sure I've got small enough screws. But if you've got any thoughts, better ways of doing it, do let me know. And I'm glad I found this sort of advice on YouTube just last night about battening and not going straight into the metal. I will put a vapor barrier on the ceiling, but the minute you screw into it, even if a screw is in tight, moisture will still run down it. So I'm no expert on electrics. This is not how to, this is not instructions, whatever. You're going to have to seek that for yourself. This is just the way I am setting up my electrical system, and I have done a lot of research, and do have previous knowledge. Made up a couple of cables. This is the positive one, obviously, and I've done them so that the connectors lie flat with the curvature of the cable, so that they lie nicely on top of the batteries. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. I've made a negative one already, that's half on. Let's just put this on. So positive connector to positive connector, negative to negative. I've not got them linked into the circuit yet, and off the negative comes the shunt for an accurate battery monitor reading, and everything else will come off the other end of that shunt once that's connected up, and nothing will come off between. So the power needs to go in from the CTEK system to these batteries into this. It can then travel through the batteries and the cables. So the power will go into that end of the positive system from the CTEK and come out through the shunt. So both batteries are used uniformly, and that's parallel. Parallel connection keeps the voltage at 12 volts but doubles the ampage, so you've got double usage of the power, which means that these 120 amp hour batteries add up to 240 amp hours at 12 volts. That's my system, and the tape is on there because the markings can be hard to see, and I just don't want to make a mistake, especially when I've got the unit in front of it. Now I wondered how I was going to tell it I've got an AGM battery, and out of the CTEK D250SE, these 2 cables at the bottom are for the alternator and the battery selector. So the black cable for my AGM, I'm going to connect it to earth. If I had a normal battery, I'd leave it disconnected, and if I had a lithium ion, I would connect it to positive. Now the red cable that comes out of there, I'm also going to leave disconnected, as I have a conventional alternator. If I had a smart alternator, I would need to connect up this red cable, but I don't. So from the CTEK D250SE, solar will come in positive there, negative there. Negative will go out to the shunt. These 2 are left alone because they're now connected by plates. The temperature sender over the side and the battery selector cable will be installed as I mentioned. And down to the Smartpass. So the load in will come in from the vehicle starter battery via a fuse at the starter battery end and an isolator switch this end. And then we've got 2 outs. We've got the out that goes, and that will go up to the positive on my service battery, and we'll also have another out that will go from there and that'll go to my consumer units via this. I'm going to use this bus bar, and then from that bus bar, the separate corners of the van will each have their own little fuse box, and they'll run off that. So that's going to be the system, and tomorrow I should get that connected up with. Now the other completely different way of wiring up batteries is what's called series. I'm not covering that. That's where the ampage stays the same and you double the voltage. I don't want a 24 volt system, so I'm keeping it in parallel at 12 volts. Really restricted what I can do today. I think I'm going to call it a day in a moment, but it just reminded me I still haven't labelled up all these cables yet that are coming out of everywhere. So need to prepare all those labels, then get all those, what I talked about yesterday, all those lighting wires. They all need to be run through some conduit up from the various places they'll go out from. I'm not quite sure yet. I need to do all that, draw a diagram tonight while I'm watching the rugby. So I'm going to go off to that. That's all, quite a short video today to show you the bits I've been getting on with. Like I say, I'm going to keep doing these daily vlogs during lockdown at least. So guys, thanks for watching.